fucking game dev now? Guess I better start a mediocre YouTube channel. Some things around programming and Unity finally began to click during this trip. I was able to build my game to a phone, have strangers try it at shows. Even with a high language barrier, folks in Belgrade, Zagreb, Budapest were all able to try and play the game. There was no way that I was going to afford a $3,000 per month shoebox in this neoliberal hellscape. So I called my cousin, and before I could even ask, I was on train DC to get my shit together. Nobody knew what to do. My old work at the parkour factory had everyone laid off. I asked parkour man, Mr. Danger.
Shake hands with Danger.
If he would help me buy a dev machine with a graphics card. After reacquainting myself with being a PC gamer, I decided it was time to stop drinking a whole case of Modelo every night and instead drink half a case of Modelo every night and resume work on Space Pups.
E to extrude, S to scale, E to extrude, S to scale, E to extrude, S to scale, E to extrude, S to scale.
After watching Imphanzia make wonderful low poly models quickly, I was off to the races. Making Pup really convinced me that it was time to start getting a bit more serious about making things look good in my games. Not to be satisfied with looking at white prototypes for months. And the wonderful Andrew sent me a layered space background with a bit of parallax that added a huge depth to the game. After the Trump bucks started rolling in, moved myself to Philadelphia.
Bad things happen in Philadelphia.
And my timing couldn't have been better. Anyways, need to work on Space Pups, adding more systems to get more variety in the levels. But after a while, I started to notice something wasn't quite right with Space Pups. It's not quite what I wanted to be doing. I could tell I wasn't fully invested in it, so why would anyone else be? Whoa. This stupid, poorly executed meme is what started this Katamari disaster project. I was absolutely engrossed. First, I tried at making a car controller. With hopes dashed, I began to think a bit differently. Car controllers in Unity are a solved problem. This out-of-the-box car controller, the first paid asset I've ever allowed myself to buy, enabled me to crank out this prototype in a couple of hours, and I began to break my stubbornness of having to build everything by myself. Of course, I could not have a sword car without a sword, so using my newfound modeling skills made an interpretation of a 69 Charger. Drifting around was fun. The sword twice the length of your car, but what is a sword car with nothing to slice? I needed to make someone easy to hate. Now that I had my boy, we need to make him work. A simple collision check against which part of the vehicle hits causes one of two things to happen. Hit strikes the chassis of a car, causes a dying sound and a full body ragdoll that take the place of the character. But if that object is tagged with a sword, we get a different version. The ragdoll is split in two, and unenabled tells blood particle system to fire. And using particle system collisions, we can draw another particle on the ground, giving us the splatter effect. I don't really think that devs talk about sound enough. I was really lucky to have come from the music scene, and someone really liked the GIFs that I posted, and he went ahead and volunteered to make these horrific dying sounds.
Ouch.
Absolutely killed it.
Let's practice the basics.
I wasn't really digging the built-in Unity PBR shader, so I wanted to go for something more like a Pseudo 51 toon or cell shader. But I've never written a shader in my life. I combined the techniques from the high-key sexual tension duo behind Mr. Pips. Oh yeah. And this one from Games+Games. There's no way I could make a game that is this inspired by Carmageddon and not have vehicles to slice. I made a network of nodes. These nodes would make a circuit for the AI to follow, and using a little bit of vector math told the car when to turn, when to brake, when to speed up. Not a perfect system. The fine-tuning was so damn frustrating, and this will almost certainly need a rework.
Failure.
Now that I had a good idea of how the game would feel, how big the car was, how fast it goes, its acceleration, the enemies, I could properly size the level before I made it. Used a 4 meter wide street, 1 meter wide sidewalk. Additionally, the new level needs to be reusable, having enough branching paths that multiple stages or missions could be used inside the same geometry. Making sure prefabs across scenes are properly synced is a goddamn nightmare. If each level needs to have essentially the same hierarchy for basic stuff, cameras, player controller, effects, there must be a better way to do it. Enter the unsupported world of multi-scene editing. I use a base scene that contains the constructor of the car, the camera, the effects, and the Statron. All the linkages happen across scenes at runtime. The environment is in its own scene, and now each mission can have its own scene. I had a good feel of the toy that is the sword car. But what would folks do with this toy? How do I communicate this story? I was perhaps raised a bit more by Fox McCloud than my own parents.
This is Rob, 64. Keep up the good work.
So I went with their system of communication. Then there was the case of objectives. The easiest, killing everyone. A bit more complicated to program than I had thought. Luckily, C# events allowed for an okay implementation. More like Alfredo than pure. Another objective, collecting packages or discs in a timed fashion, really cemented the crazy taxi influence going on here. If I'm going to make the Dark Souls of drifting, you need to be able to die.
You're dead.
It would be easy enough to copy the explosion of the AI cars, but it needed a little extra jazz. Right? I figured the sword should never die. Player hits the wall with their sword, they don't get hurt. So if the car is destroyed, the sword should move on. This was a little bit more fun than I anticipated. If you were like me, you probably spent way too much money on the San Francisco Rush cabinet at your local mall arcade. One thing that never left my mind was how extreme it all was. It's dangerous! I needed it. I brought it in my game. So, a couple cars done, got my menu, decided it was time to revisit the car controller. The car was still just the straight-up lifted version of the ACC. Its limitations were starting to become overbearing. Super Drift Mode is the bastard child of a nitro boost and a handbrake. Here's how it works.
For this problem, you'll need to set your calculator to maths.
When the player presses shift or right shoulder, the SDM controller takes note of the player's current velocity, steering direction, and throttle. It then removes almost all friction from the tires and applies a force in that recorded velocity. If a steering direction is detected, it then activates a coroutine, which locks the car's forward heading 60 degrees left or right of that velocity vector in the Z-axis. Through the drifting boost, the player can then use the throttle to interpolate between the force vector captured from the velocity headings and the car's current forward direction. Letting go of the SDM button rapidly restores friction to the wheels.
That's one fine-looking barbecue pit. Why doesn't mine look like that?
Hey. You hear that? Yes. My good friends, Vert, Surf, and Frag are all here, gathered to kick my balls again repeatedly. I had one big problem with my original toon shader, no shadows. I couldn't use it on the environment. It looked dramatically better, but it really wasn't super performant and is gonna need another. I devised a new way to play. The player is now forced to race around a circuit like normal racing games, kind of. However, the time that they have to complete the circuit is not replenished by crossing the checkpoints, but rather through gore. I'd been trapped on what I thought a core question of the game was, how do I reward the player for their murder? The answer was shown to me by this course rework. It's the best thing I've done to the game. Each busy man killed will put time back into the gore time. 1 second for hitting them with the chassis, 3 seconds for slicing them with the sword, and 5 for destroying a busy car. As I stated kind of before, handcrafting AI is hard and I'm lazy. So after watching Jabril's video on the subject, I thought it would be the perfect solution.
Because I'm lazy. I really just want to sit on my little tush and eat candy all day. Why doesn't Forrest navigate the course his own damn self?
Essentially what we're doing is robot husbandry. Killing millions of iterations of robots and only letting an elite few of each generation mate with one another. However, rather than inseminating Bessie by hand, we instead write a fitness algorithm. Simply put, you measure the things that the robot does and you arbitrarily assign a point system to it. Kind of like a game. If the brain gets enough points, its genes are preserved. So I set up something resembling the metrics of my world and had the robot smash its head against the wall until it got better at traversing it. The carrots for our robot include average speed, crossing checkpoints. The sticks were instant deaths, hitting a wall, not moving, taking too long to cross another checkpoint. The results were actually kinda scary. After a few days, I found a good tuning for the fitness algorithm and let the machine run overnight at 50 times speed. And after 1,700 generations, it created this JSON file that is the brain of the car now in the game. The biggest problem with this is that at runtime, it uses these complicated matrix equations. The library I use to make these matrix equations cause some garbage, and thus it needs...
Say the line, Bart!
a rework.
Yay!
I should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light!
So I'm a huge hand. Oh, fucking. I'm a huge fan of the work of art that is Devil May Cry.
Or you can expect a spanking from Daddy later.
And while I don't have such writing prowess,
Jester's gonna spank your butt.
I did think I could get away with a combo system for scoring. Mine has a similar lettering style system.
Gorgeous, killer, brutal, asinine.
This also prompted a UI rework, the third iteration. No longer using the Unity canvas, the UI container partially follows the role of the car chassis and has a nice animated effect. It's a real object in the game attached to the camera. I also added this faux CD player, and drivers can switch between mixtapes, kind of like GTA.
Nigga. What?
Soon after that update, I was contacted by fellow DMC nerd Mark from VoxPop, a new indie games distribution platform. He offered me a pretty generous deal to put SWORDCAR on the store in return for some exclusive content for folks who buy it on Vox Pop, so I'll be sure to update you guys as that goes on. I've been keeping some secrets.
Okay, guys, destroy all barriers.
Back in October, before Halloween, I followed Codeer's tutorial on procedural animation. I made this cute little guy, and then in the next 2 months conceived of SWORDCAR's first boss. This new type of enemy definitely presented some new design hurdles for full implementation, but motherfucking can climb buildings. Thanks for watching my YouTube debut. I realized that some of this was a bit glossed over, but I intend to start releasing videos a bit more regularly, possibly twice a month. I'd like to give a huge shout out to the patrons. Definitely helps me push through, especially when it's not so easy.
Nothing's wrong.
If you sign up, you get to play the SWORDCAR builds as they're made, normally about once or twice a month. In addition to SWORDCAR devlogs, as the channel grows, I'd like to expand to some other content. Drop a comment below. Let me know if you'd like me to focus on anything, analysis, design, business, music, shaders, politics. Be sure to check out links in the description for the musicians that contributed to this video. It's been hard on them during COVID, and the quoted YouTubers. I'm also now taking pre-orders for some SWORDCAR merch. My order needs to hit a manufacturer threshold, so there's no set delivery date. Just find the link in the description. Do the algorithm thing. Like and subscribe. Cheers.